The Milwaukee Public School System, or MPS, is one of the largest school districts in the country, spending over $1 billion tax dollars every year. Like many other large school districts across the country, MPS has had to deal with increasing costs and budget deficits at a time when local and state governments are having fiscal problems of their own. In 2011, it got so bad that MPS had to lay off over 500 people because of a reduction in state and federal funding and an unwillingness to streamline spending. So why is the school district also paying more than $1 million per year to maintain over 20 buildings that sit empty and unused? This building, Malcolm X Academy, has sat empty for over 6 years. St. Marcus, a private Lutheran school in the neighborhood, offered to buy it from the school district for $1 million, but MPS refused to sell it to them. Why would a school district pass up an opportunity to sell a building that's just sitting empty? Jim Bender is the president of School Choice Wisconsin, a group which advocates for parental school choice. He believes he can explain why MPS would rather sit on an empty building than sell it off to an interested school operator.
It's market share. The Milwaukee Public Schools is fighting a battle against their legacy costs. They're losing enrollment, and their extended costs in the future are only increasing. One of the big reasons they've been losing market share is because the Milwaukee Parental Choice Program has been expanding. That in and of itself is something that is causing financial hardship for the legacy cost to current operating expenses balance that MPS is trying to navigate. And so it's a market share issue, plain and simple.
C.J. Safer is the Education Policy Director for the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. His office investigated why MPS owns so many empty buildings and issued a report critical of MPS policies in 2013.
Media outlets are saying there's between 20 and 28 empty, unused school buildings. So we thought, let's find out truly what's going on. MPS's own records show that they spend over $1.5 million each year in just maintaining empty, unused school buildings, keeping them up to code, paying for the utility and the maintenance cost. That's $1.5 million of taxpayer money. The vast majority of it is completely unnecessary because we know that choice and charter schools are interested in purchasing these buildings.
But the stonewalling doesn't stop there. MPS adds deed restrictions to properties it sells to ensure that future owners can never sell to a parental choice school.
The city also has policies in place that put restrictive deeds on the property that prohibit buyers from selling unused school buildings to choice or charters.
Only in Milwaukee would you have deed restrictions that say these taxpayer-created school buildings can never be sold and used as a school building when schools, neighboring schools, have expressed interest in buying them to run schools. It doesn't make any sense.
Now, St. Marcus has been eyeing Malcolm X for a couple of years. They approached the city. The city said, no, we're not interested in selling you Malcolm X, even though it's been empty for 4 years, because you're in the school choice program.
St. Marcus is a school that, on a broad array of measures, has been doing outstanding things for their neighborhood and their community. The best schools all have huge waiting lists. There are parents wanting into these schools, and they can't get in because all of these schools are limited by the number of seats that they have.
John and Maya Larry are a perfect example of such parents. The Larrys have been waiting for years to get their children into St. Marcus and can't understand why their own school district would try to prevent them from attending such a successful school.
We have 2 girls. The oldest is 8 years old, and the youngest is 5 years old. They have totally different personalities. I really want them to get in. I am going to apply right away because last year I did it and they didn't make it in because of the long waiting list. So that's my plan.
Yeah, and we're just hoping that, hoping to really get them in.
But instead of selling Malcolm X to St. Marcus, a deal that would have put more than $1 million in Milwaukee coffers, MPS ultimately decided to strike a confusing and complicated deal that will end up costing the taxpayers millions.
it's simple versus complex. The MPS deal has you're selling a building, you're splitting it in half, you're developing one part of it, you're paying rent back on that.
Half of Malcolm X is going to be retail, apartments, commercial, and the other half is going to be for an international baccalaureate school.
And you got $2 million moving this way, $4 million going this way. You got tax credits coming in the side door.
MPS is going to lease that back, and MPS is going to pay holdings. At some point, MPS gets to purchase parts of Malcolm X back for $1.
The Malcolm X deal with St. Marcus would have been, here's your check, thank you very much.
It's a sham transaction. It's a mess.
Not only does MPS lose over $2 million in the deal itself, but the long-term cost to Wisconsin taxpayers is far greater. MPS spends approximately $7,000 more per student per year than St. Marcus. Add the costs of maintaining the new community center that is slated to replace part of Malcolm X, and the total 10-year cost comes to over $70 million. And the costs don't end there. 96% of St. Marcus students go on to graduate from high school, compared with an MPS graduation rate of 65%. Those high school dropouts are far more likely to require public support in the future, earning on average 40% less than high school graduates. They are also less likely to ever own a home and are more likely to be incarcerated. The cost of these lost lives cannot be measured in dollars.
That says to me that there is absolutely no concern for the children of Milwaukee when it comes to their use of facilities. It's about cash flow, power, and revenue. That's it. This is a real estate transaction to lock out a competitor and retain market share. It's got nothing to do with education. It's got nothing to do with the students of Milwaukee.
Besides the politics and everything that are happening within the educational field here in Wisconsin, we're hoping that beyond that, legislators and so forth will see that this is about empowering and equipping children to have a positive future. And that's basically what we want for our kids.
Although the Malcolm X Academy deal may seem like an obvious loss for taxpayers and Milwaukee students, the project was fully supported by MPS President Michael Bonds. EAG News reached out both to Bonds and the developer, but they declined to be interviewed for this report. President Bonds has, however, gone on the record in the past. He compared Milwaukee students to soda, saying that selling an MPS building to a parental choice school was, quote, like asking the Coca-Cola company to turn over its facilities to Pepsi, so Pepsi can expand and compete with the Coca-Cola company.
Pepsi and Coke battle over market share and money. That's how some view this in Milwaukee. St. Marcus, they're trying to expand educational opportunities for students. We have parents that want to come here. We will expand, provide opportunities. There's other people over here that say, nope, it's our building. We're going to do whatever we can to keep the cash. They're not thinking about the kids in any way, shape, or form. It has no bearing on what they're doing.
And Malcolm X is not an isolated incident. All throughout Milwaukee, MPS is sitting on empty buildings that could otherwise be used by high-performing schools.
Lighthouse Academies, they wanted to purchase a empty school building called Carleton. Carleton's been empty for about 4 years. They made an offer to MPS, and MPS all just completely disregarded the offer. Woodlands Charter School. Woodlands has been an educational operator in the city of Milwaukee for about 60 years. They wanted to purchase Dover. They submitted a letter of intent to purchase, completely stonewalled, completely blocked. Dover sits empty today.
These are buildings that were built with tax dollars that are collected from all around the state. You know, the MPS gets $800 million a year or a little over in state aid to run its schools. So these buildings were paid for by state tax dollars, not just Milwaukee area tax dollars. They were buildings that were meant to educate children. If we're really going to tackle the issues that we face here in Milwaukee, we need Milwaukee's leaders to step forward and admit the problem. If you're not going to admit a problem exists, you're never going to fix the problem.
Wisconsin State Representative Joe Sanfilippo introduced legislation that creates a new legal process for selling empty schools.
So what we're doing with this bill is we're doing a couple things. Number one, we're saying that MPS has to do an inventory and provide us with an inventory of all the buildings they have, which ones they're using, what they're not using, the capacity to the extent that they're using those buildings. And then they have to put forward an open and honest process in which these buildings can be sold to anybody who wants to come along and use them, be it a private developer or another choice or charter school. And so we're trying to bring some integrity and some openness into the process so we don't have situations like what's happened at Malcolm X continue on in the future. I would put pressure at the local level. If you live in the city of Milwaukee, call your alderman, call the mayor, certainly call your state senator, your state representative. You know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and somebody has to stand up and speak for these kids.
That's what it is all about. It's not about the buildings. It's not about St. Marcus per se or the public school system per se, but it's about the kids. And if it's about the kids, then allowing anybody to come in who is going to offer our kids a high quality education to purchase these buildings, then I would definitely appreciate that.
For EAG News, this is Kyle Olson.